We are one step closer to the realization of the dream for a women's IPL. Now, BCCI had, of course, announced an intention of starting the tournament come the 2023 calendar year, and it does seem likely that we are moving slowly but surely towards that, because the news has now been broken by BCCI Secretary Jay Shah himself on Twitter, and he's confirmed that the media rights for a women's IPL for the first 5 years has officially been sold. And that means that women's IPL, now we've moved one step closer, because aside from, of course, the intention of hosting a tournament, now we know where exactly its home will be for viewers of the tournament. So obviously it's big news, and Jay Shah in his tweet actually did make it very clear about the financials involved. So we thought we'd do a little deeper digging and look at the numbers that are involved in this particular deal, which will, of course, bring us one step closer to seeing a women's IPL at last. So before we go into the details on the numbers and what exactly it means, let's first take a look at what exactly it is that Jay Shah himself had to say. He put out a tweet where he said, "Congratulations Viacom 18 for winning the women's IPL media rights. Thank you for your faith in the BCCI and the BCCI women," tagging both of those. Viacom has committed rupees 951 crores, which means that the per match value of rupees 7.09 crores for the next 5 years, that is from 2023 to 27. This is massive for women's cricket. He would go on to add even further beyond this. He would say, after pay equity, which is of course in reference to the BCCI giving out equal match fees to both men's and women's cricketers, today's bidding for the media rights for the women's IPL marks another historic mandate. It's a big and decisive step for the empowerment of women's cricket in India, which will ensure participation of women from all ages. A new dawn indeed. Now, obviously, as he's mentioning, it's a major step for, women's cricket as a whole. There's long been a clamor for a women's IPL in general, and it is wonderful to see that, of course, the steps that are being taken is moving slowly but surely towards making that a reality. Of course, there is more than one benefits of having a women's IPL. It's not just the fact that women's cricketers will get exposure and get to rub shoulders with the world's best. It will also ensure that the women's IPL and women's cricket in general starts generating more money for the BCCI. And of course, we know that in a business-driven world, it's money that talks. And if you're generating money, then there will be more investment and interest put in the product. And that perhaps is probably one of the bigger benefits of this entire process. But how exactly does it compare if you're looking at to the men's IPL? The short answer, not favorably, but that's to be expected, and we'll delve into that in just, right now. So the basic numbers when you're looking at the women's IPL media rights is that there will be, as mentioned, 951 crores from the calendar years 2023 to 2027. Now, since there is, of course, no mention of, this being digital rights or broadcast rights, we're assuming that, of course, both the digital and TV rights have been sold to Viacom 18, who, of course, who will be the first home for a women's IPL. And the biggest number is that there will be 7.09 crores per match, per every match of the women's IPL that will be played. The broadcasters will be paying on average 7.09 crores. Now, considering the fact that women's interest in women's cricket only really started taking off from maybe 2017 onwards, this is in fact a massive step for the women's game, because quite frankly, you want the interest that fans have in, of course, the sport to be substantiated by it making money, and broadcasters being interested in putting that product on their channels, because that, of course, ensures more exposure and perhaps more importantly a further professionalization of the game. Now, this is, of course, the numbers from this particular cycle. How does it compare, as I said, to the men's IPL cycles when it first came about? So let's quickly take a look at that. If you're looking at the first ever time when the BCCI sold the men's IPL rights, they sold it for 8,200 crores, and that was for a period of 10 years when, of course, Sony had bagged the rights. They had it for the first 10 years, and they paid 8,200 crores to actually get the media rights for the first ever IPL. Now, this, of course, went up substantially, because you remember in the second round of bidding that took place, Star had won the combined rights for, of course, both digital and broadcast, for TV rather. They had won the digital and TV rights for a combined bid of over 16,000 crores. And this time around, if you're looking at it, when the cycle came up earlier this year, last year, in 2022, the media rights were sold for a whopping 48,390 crore rupees. So that is in itself, it shows the number of growth, because you went from 8,000 odd crores to 16,000 odd crores to 48,000 crores. Now, obviously, when you look at those numbers, 951 crores over a period of 5 years doesn't seem like a lot, but it is worth noting that men's cricket has a historical advantage over women's cricket. Men's cricket as a whole has in fact been the only form of cricket that most fans have consumed ever since they've really been fans of the game. In fact, 1983 World Cup, first ever World Cup that India won, was won by the men's team, and thereafter there has been more glories, all of which have come to the men's side of things. So naturally, the focus has gravitated more on the men's game, which means that it is obviously more of a money spinner than the women's game. Now, that being said, the fact is that, as I said, from 2017 onwards is when the interest for the women's game really started taking off, and considering it's only the beginning of 2023, which means that you're counting nearly 6 years in, the fact that they could get a TV rights deal for 951 crores is massive. And perhaps most importantly, women's cricket is still growing. There's plenty of scope for more and more growth of the sport, both in terms of interest and of course the amount of money that the sport can generate for the BCCI, and how much therefore the women can make of the sport. So that perhaps is the one thing that is we should really be focusing on a lot more than just the women's the amount of money. Remember, 8,200 crores for a men's IPL also came 1 year after India had lifted the inaugural T20 World Cup. The women's game, as things stand, has seen massive leaps and strides, but India also haven't really won a World Cup, or whether it be in any format. So there has also yet to be that sort of a translation of interest. Once or if that happens, there will be further growth of the women's IPL, which means more money for all of the players, and perhaps more importantly, more careers generated, and of course, making the sport more open to people irrespective of their genders. And that perhaps is one of the more important things when you're coming to look at women's cricket. It's not just about the numbers involved, because if you're looking at it, a sport that has only really had interest for 6 odd years, generating about 900 crores over a 5-year period, is very, very impressive. And what's more is that there is room for growth further. However, there's no doubt to the fact that this is a historic, massive moment for women cricketers, and that we cannot be more excited for a women's IPL. We'd really love for it to happen sooner rather than later, and this has brought us one step closer towards the women's IPL finally becoming a reality. What do you guys think? Do you think this is a massive step? Are you happy with the numbers that are being quoted? What are your thoughts on, of course, the growth prospects of women's cricket in this nation? Do let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap the bell icon too, so you know every single time we go live or upload a new video. Then you can also go ahead and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and last but not least, don't forget to download the SportsTak app. Thank you all once again for joining us. I hope to see you with us through the rest of the day, but for now, goodbye.